So I wanted to use parks out in Gainesville to give you examples of two of the most important definitions that I talked about in lecture. First of all, ecotourism, and I'm going to use Depot Park here, an urban park just south of downtown Gainesville, to show you what I mean. The definition of ecotourism is responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment, sustains the well-being of the local people, and involves interpretation and education. So while there's a lot to that definition, and really this isn't a true tourism destination, it still has a lot of the concepts that are important to understanding this definition. So I'm going to go through each one of these. First of all, responsible travel to natural areas. So responsible travel can be complicated. We often think that often means the visitors need to come and be aware of all the rules and regulations, plus no environmental responsible behavior, and just do what they're supposed to do. But really, I would put the job on the natural resource managers who are managing the tourism destination. So for here at Depot Park, you can see they have trails in places. That's basically directing people to go to appropriate places. There's signs and other information throughout the park to basically, again, tell people what responsible behaviors are and where to go, where not to go. And so it's up to that manager basically to do the management, the trails, as well as give the information so we can ensure responsible behavior is happening out there. The second part, that conserves the environment. So conserve the environment is an important thing, and in many of the parks that we're going to be talking about in this class, we'll be talking about much more natural areas than Depot Park, but this is still a great example. So really, this was a very engineered park, but it is done for conservation. The water that moves through Depot Park basically comes from the urban area, so it has a lot of pollutants going through it, and the vegetation it's moving through is basically cleaning that area out. Now, it'd be great if we could just get tax money to pay for these type of things, but visitors also need to say, or locals want to know, well, what else are we going to get out of it? What are the benefits to the people who live around this area? And so by people coming here and having this be a recreation destination, it really improves the value of an area like this for conservation. And that gets to the last part, or the second to last part, sustain the welfare of local people. So sustain the welfare of local people, often people will think that means economics, providing jobs and income. And it's true, Depot Park has some great little businesses that are just on the north side of the park that local owners have, and people will have some jobs, but that's not a lot of people. So really, can we justify having a park here for maybe, 5 to 10 jobs with a small economic impact? Really, what is that sustaining the local welfare? Well, all the recreation that goes on in this park is what I consider to be a lot of that sustain the local welfare part of things. People are getting so many benefits out of having this park so close to their houses and so close to downtown that really that value is hard to measure, but often is the main driver of creating parks like this. And finally, the last part was added on, involves interpretation and education. It's really not even that, doesn't even sync with the definition so much, but it does talk about that when people are coming here, that they need to get some added understanding of what's going on in the environment. Now, it doesn't say just about nature. We can talk about culture and nature. Now, Depot Park has a lot to do, almost as much with culture as it does with the environmental aspects going on here. And it also doesn't necessarily mean just the visitors are getting that education and interpretation. The managers who are providing this also need to be well educated and understand how to provide sustainable management of places like this. So we mentioned a little bit there at the end about how people coming to these areas are benefiting from it. That leads on to the next definition, recreation, which we're going to talk about here next. Now I want to talk about the definition of recreation. So I'm going to contrast this a little bit with ecotourism. Recreation, as opposed to ecotourism, we're now talking about an individual. We're talking about the experiences that people have. When we were at Depot Park, ecotourism is immense. We're talking about the businesses, the environment, the visitors, the local people. Here we're now just talking about a person. So I think this is a good place to talk about that. This is Coffrin Park. It's a small little natural area in the western neighborhoods of Gainesville. Gainesville has maybe a dozen of these types of parks, and a lot of communities and counties throughout the country have places like this. So natural resource managers basically fight for these little pockets of undeveloped area because there's a lot of ecological services here, but what you'll also find is almost always there will be recreation access. So recreation, what do we mean? The definition that I provide in class is intrinsically rewarding and voluntary engagements during non-obligated time. So what does that mean? The last part of it is basically saying it's something you do during your free time. So voluntary engagements during non-obligated time. That could sound trivial. Sounds like something we just go off and do, because actually in many cases we do trivial things during non-obligated time. But when we're talking about recreation, it can be very valuable to the people who make those decisions. Even if they're choosing an afternoon to go out into a park, they could do anything in the world, but they're choosing a park to go out and do this too. Then people travel around the world doing these things too. They'll fly to Indonesia to go visit Komodo dragons. They'll go to Africa to visit wildlife. That is all things that they're doing, spending a lot of money on, that they could do anything they want. So these are very valuable to those people. Now, but let's talk about value in terms of that first part of the definition, intrinsically rewarding. As I mentioned, recreation is an experience, and it's that experience that is intrinsically rewarding. So we say the experience itself is the benefit. So people aren't getting paid to go out and recreate. They aren't getting a grade for recreation. They are basically coming out because the experience they have is what they're finding to be the most valuable. So about something here like Coffin Park, what are they getting in a place like this? Well, this is a very natural area, so they're going to get nature appreciation. What else might they get? Let's say they're busy at home, working, doing stuff at home, and they have a chance to just get away from it for a little bit. They will choose this park maybe to come out and just escape the family, escape work, escape stress, get a little bit of relief from all that for a little bit. There's environmental interpretation they could get. So if they walk along this trail, they'll see little bits of information about the animals and the vegetation and the ecosystem here. Again, another intrinsic reward that they get. So that's really what we'll be talking a lot about this semester. When we talk about why people recreate and the opportunities that managers are providing by allowing people to come out into these natural areas and providing them the facilities and services, they're providing people opportunities to get these very important benefits. All right.